Hey, so I wanted to do something a little different than I normally do, where instead of reviewing a movie in and of itself, I wanted to review a new Blu-ray release of a movie. Don't do a lot of these, mainly because about 10 years ago I did a review of a bootleg DVD of a Serbian film, and most of the comments were negative in that they just wanted a review of the film itself and they didn't care about me talking about the specifics of that particular bootleg, which was an uncut DVD bootleg that for a very brief period of time was available for sale on Amazon. About that film, I do know Unearthed Films is working on an unedited or an uncut Blu-ray of it, along with a 10th anniversary documentary. It's a little over the 10-year anniversary of that film. No release date as of yet. Otherwise, I believe there was an uncut DVD released by the last distributor. Otherwise, there's not many Region A or Region 1 uncut releases of that film. Regardless, not talking about a Serbian film here, except for that part. So I want to talk about a movie called Ozone, and I'm holding a magnet for the film because this came with the Blu-ray. So let me talk about this. So Ozone was a shot-on-video film from about 1993, 1994. Shot-on-video films is something I'm getting into a little bit more, and by that I mean movies that were shot basically on like VHS tape as opposed to any type of film stock in the pre-digital era when you had like DV camcorders and stuff, and digital film, which most movies are shot on now, with red camera or stuff like that. And it was this very interesting time period in film. Or in movies where people could just buy like commercial-grade camcorders or broadcast equipment cameras that film like local news shows and whatever. And you could make these amateur films, and they tend to fall in a few different categories. There are like the completely amateurish garbage, and then there's movies that are so bad they're good, like Blood Lake, stuff like that. And then there are ones that are legitimately good for what they are. And so the Alamo Drafthouse, the theater I usually go to, when COVID's not happening, aside from a video store in the lobby that they call Video Vortex, they usually also have monthly Video Vortex screenings, which at my Alamo, it's usually one Friday night in the month. It's $1 to get in. I mean, I use my season pass, but if you don't have a season pass, it's only $1 to buy a ticket, so it's a good deal there. And they'll show some sort of shot-on-video obscurity. That's how I first saw Blood Lake, which AGFA later put out on DVD. That was really funny. I've seen some other stuff. There was a movie called Killing Spree, which was a fun movie, and the main star of that movie, Asbestos Felt, actually came to the movie for a Q&A, and I got my picture taken with them, and that was really fun. But I remember there was an advertisement for Ozone, that they were going to show this one of the months for their Video Vortex screening. And the trailer for it seemed very interesting. It seemed to have like these weird creatures and these odd like early 90s morphing effects, and it seemed pretty bizarre and up my alley. And I don't remember why, but for some reason I didn't end up seeing the screening they had. Something came up or whatever, or I was busy doing something else. So I didn't end up getting to see it at Alamo like I wanted to. And then I remember I was looking for it on the different streaming services, shot-on-video stuff. It's either on Amazon Prime or maybe Tubi. Tubi's free. That's a pretty good service to find obscure little like random trash movies. But Amazon Prime had it for a while. And I remember I streamed like the first 5 minutes, and then I had to like go do something else again. Like my life kept getting in the way of me seeing this movie, and I was like, "Oh, this is funny. This seems pretty cool." But then it became unavailable, so I couldn't finish the film. And then I follow a couple pages that tell me about upcoming Blu-ray releases, especially of the boutique label variety. And I saw that Ozone was getting a Blu-ray release, so I decided to go ahead and pick that up. So, obviously, if I have the magnet that came along with the sale, I also have the Blu-ray of it. So, yeah. So, a couple caveats. When I saw that the Blu-ray was available, I went to the website that was selling it. Apparently, it's going to be available like everywhere, stores and Amazon and other online retailers around August. But if you bought it directly from the main site selling it, which was Makeflix.com, you could get it right now. So they started shipping in late June. That's when I received it. But I saw that it was not a official or pressed Blu-ray, or if whatever you want to call it, like a normal like store-bought Blu-ray. It was being manufactured on a BDR, or a BD25, which is the type of, it's basically a readable or a recordable Blu-ray disc. Like if you buy a blank Blu-ray disc from the store and you have a Blu-ray burner on your computer, you can burn a movie on it, that kind of thing. So it wasn't like a official Blu-ray disc. So I'm like, huh. Well, I've seen those before. I know a couple different online retailers, for a movie that has a very small fan base or a very niche fan base that people aren't going to buy that many of, you can usually buy something that's manufactured on demand like that. I have a couple of movies like that from Amazon. The DVD of Cronenberg's Crash, not the one about racism that won the Oscar, but the one about people who have a car accident fetish. That was a manufacturer, so that was a DVD-R. I think I have a CD for the Repo the Genetic Opera soundtrack, and that was a CD-R because that was also manufactured on demand. So I've bought stuff like that before, but generally if you see that, you have to think like, oh, is this actually a real movie, or is this a bootleg, like that horrible Stinky Tuna website that sells a bunch of like bootleg Netflix movies on physical media? I looked into it, and it was an official release. The Blu-ray was released by Makeflix and a company called Tempe Digital. And when I looked into it, Tempe Digital is a company that seems to be owned by the guy who directed Ozone, J.R. Bookwalter. So I figure, if it's the director of the actual movie that's releasing it, that's about as official as you can get. So why the BDR instead of an official Blu-ray? Well, it seems that, if you're doing a official pressed Blu-ray, if you go to the manufacturers to make that product, there's usually like a minimum order that you have to run and buy a bunch in bulk. And I don't know if it's like 2,000 or 5,000 or there's some amount that is your basic minimum to print these up from the companies that do that. And that would have been, according to the director, I think he posted this on his Facebook or something, that would have been just outside of the possibility for him financially, because this is still, this is a shot-on-video film from the early 90s with a pretty niche fan base, so it would have been, outside of the realm of financial possibility to release it on Blu-ray if he was going that route. So, people who know a little bit more about tech specs than I can probably tell you the main problems between a BDR and a pressed Blu-ray disc. As far as like picture and sound and all that stuff. But the one thing that always worries me about that is the shelf life, or how long the disc will work before it doesn't work anymore. From what I have read, the shelf life or the lifespan of a pressed Blu-ray disc is about 100 years, maybe even more. Obviously we don't know because the technology is still reasonably new. But it's estimated that a pressed Blu-ray can last about 100 years. So about, most of us are, from the time I buy this, 100 years from now I'll be dead. So so if my Blu-ray stopped working, it's not my problem. It's whoever buys it for my estate sale. Morbid. So that's not really a problem. But for a BDR, it seems to be much, much less of a shelf life before it goes. Because apparently, with a BDR or a burned Blu-ray, as opposed to an officially pressed Blu-ray, there's a certain there's something that keeps the chemicals from leaching out that make it, so that eventually it deteriorates. There's nothing to like keep it from falling apart, for lack of a better term. It looks like, from what I've read, and again, we still actually don't know this, and we don't know what other factors cause it, but I've read that the estimates for how long a BDR lasts can be as low as 10 years, and the upwards of about 20 years, which is far less than 100 years. 20 years from now is 2040. So, I mean, yeah, that's, it seems like, well, will the movie just stop working at that point? I don't know. But then again, no one really knows. This is just an estimate. And I did see that the Makeflix website, for the page where you order Ozone, they say they'll guarantee it for 15 years, so it's 2035. I don't know if just replace your disc, or I don't know what they do. I don't know how to go about that refund if that were to happen. But I also have to think, okay, I mean, this cost me like 25 bucks or whatever because I bought this signature 2-disc edition. How many times am I going to watch this in the next 15 to 20 years? I'll probably get my money's worth out of it. So, as long as you understand that caveat, that this is a BDR and not a press disc, and as long as you know it's not a bootleg, it's fine. So that's that. So yeah, they did have 2 editions available. They had like a standard edition and they had a signature edition. Signature edition is the one that came with the magnet. It also comes with this little fancy slip cover because, as you can see, the Blu-ray is in here. The slip cover is pretty thin, cheap cardboard. It's not Vinegar Syndrome quality. It's more like the kind of slip covers you see on like a Shout Factory disc, things like that. But what is cool about the slipcover is that the director of the film puts his signature on it, hence signature edition. So you also get the autograph of the director, so that's pretty neat. On the disc itself, or the disc artwork itself, on the front is the new commissioned artwork that's on the slipcover, which it's basically a replication of the poster art, but then it adds a bunch of other interesting characters to there. But the original VHS artwork is behind one of the discs, the disc that is the Blu-ray. As far as some extras that are involved, and I'll go over the extras in more detail in a bit, but as far as features, I mean, you have the reversible artwork, you have the Blu-ray disc, which has the movie that's been restored from the VHS-C master copy, as well as the bulk of the extras. And then you have, that's actually this one, the bulk of the extras. And then you have the DVD, which has the red VHS picture on it, and this has the movie in just regular VHS. Like, it looks like it originally looked on VHS, not restored, nothing in standard def, and a couple other extras on here. I guess if you wanted to watch the original version, either because you just want to see the colors bleed and everything like VHS, but also I know the Blu-ray version, they fixed or tweaked a few of the morphs and the very, very cheap rudimentary digital effects to make them look a little bit better, and they put different titles on it so that the titles look a little bit better. But if you want the pure original version and you're not like a George Lucas person, the VHS version is there. The booklet is it's only like 6 or whatever pages, and it gives a nice little rundown of the history of the project. I will mention that on the last page, one thing they do is they talk about the specific steps of remastering the VHS master, as well as the audio. And there's also a link to a free streaming version of the movie if you bought this disc. It gives you basically the link, and then there's a promo code. I tried this just for the hell of it. The promo code did not work for me. So I don't know if they fixed that or if too many people put it in, but it didn't work. So there's that. So I guess I should talk a little bit about the movie before I get into the disc's features and stuff, which is what the bulk of this review is probably going to be about. So the movie, shot on video, fixing the little booklet, the thing here, shot on video around 93, 94, and released obviously direct to VHS for the sell-through and the rental-through rental market. The movie only cost $3,500 to make. Now, I don't know what that is in 2020 dollars with inflation, but it's still not much. That is a very puny amount to make a feature film with. So, so almost nothing budget. The director seems to have made it with a general group of people who were in some of his other projects. So it seems to be a labor of love for a bunch of these kids in their 20s who are just making a movie and everything. When you consider the lack of budget and the fact that most of the actors and crew and everyone else is still pretty much considered an amateur, the movie is of surprisingly high quality for all of that. A film shot on VHS for $3,500. It has some interesting lighting where they put like green and orange and amber gels on things to give the very rudimentary cheap sets and locations that they had. I think they had like an abandoned office building for most of the sets, but it gives it a nice look to it. Occasionally the director uses some Dutch angles, but he doesn't misuse them like in Battlefield Earth or whatever. It adds to tension. The score is cheap but interesting, and it seems to work for it. And ultimately, I mean, if you like shot-on-video stuff like this, if you're the kind of person who's seen movies like Sledgehammer and Blood Cult and you like that sort of thing, then you'll like it. If you go into it expecting a movie of a certain professional sheen, you're not going to like it. So you basically have to look at what this type of movie is. Of a movie of its type, it's quite good. It's surprisingly good. The plot basically involves this new drug that's hit the market that's called Ozone, and when people take it, it can cause their body to sort of mutate and sometimes melt. So it can be so this is kind of a little bit of a melt movie and a little bit of a body horror movie, and also it causes them to hallucinate and things like that. And so there's a cop who's going after some of the perps and like drug dealers in the area. His partner seems to disappear related to this, and he during a scuffle with one of the drug dealers, he gets injected with a tiny bit of ozone, and he starts to sort of feel the effects in there. And so it's about him. He's been a little bit drugged. He's still starting to feel the effects. His partner's missing, and he's investigating. After he's suspended from the force, he goes to sort of investigate the source of this drug and what happened to his partner and things like that. And that's the basic plot. And then in the midst of that, he runs into other people who are using ozone, and some of them kind of look like rip-off Cenobites, and some of them look like weird other creatures, and there's a lot of like goopy, gross effects, and there's like a gladiator fight at one point, kind of, and it goes into your normal bizarre shot-on-video cult places that it goes. But the movie remains pretty fun. Yeah, there's some acting and line delivery and some scenes that fall into the so bad they're good category. Then there's a couple gross gore effects and things like that go into the what the fuck category and everything. And there's the main villain of the movie. It looks both cool and awful at the same time. And all of the druggies who are on Ozone, their voices put through a weird voice modulator, so they all kind of sound like kind of cheesy and fun. But I had a blast with the movie. The movie in and of itself is quite fun. So if you like this kind of stuff, you want to have a couple drinks with your friends, or in a state that allows it, smoke a doobie or whatever, eat your edibles. I'm so lame. Then this is a good movie for that. I kind of wish I had seen it at Alamo with a bunch of other trash cinema likers. But that's sort of the long and the short of the plot, and as far as what type of movie this is. So if you're still interested, let's go into the special features and such. Okay, so taking a look at some of the extras. I apologize for just shooting my television with a camcorder, but I don't have a Blu-ray drive on my computer. First thing we have, bloopers and outtakes. I like that they put how long each extra is there too. That's very helpful. The bloopers and outtakes, it's a mix of just sort of shots that they let go on and multiple takes and stuff. None of the bloopers are particularly funny, though most of the actors sometimes they mess up their lines or they miss their marks or stuff like that. But it's decent to get sort of a view of what the vibe on the set was the entire time. So that's kind of fun. The production artwork gallery, that's a mix of pre-production drawings of what some of the creatures, for lack of a better term, are going to be called. As well as there's some like location scouting stills and things like that. Yeah, it's fine. It's like a still gallery, but instead of clicking through it, it just kind of plays through. So like if you're me and you want to just kind of quickly skim through it, you can put your PlayStation 4 on like a 1.5 speed and kind of goof through it. Promotional gallery, it's mainly a bunch of like reviews and different articles and different periodicals about the film and stuff. You can always just pause your disc and read some of the articles if you'd like. It's fun to have. The 1993 TV news segment's pretty fun because you have the stock chyron that's still hard-coded at the bottom going through, but it's an interview with the director as well as, I guess, two business partners who make movies on their own. It seems like he had a relationship with these two other guys who made movies such as Killer Nerd and Bride of Killer Nerd, and he would distribute the movies. So while Bookwalter was directing his own films, he was also distributing movies for like other people, so it's kind of a Lloyd Kaufman situation almost there. It's like a small business news segment. It seems like this TV show just covered different small businesses, so they did a brief part about their like production and distribution studio. It's pretty fun. The 1993 Newstalk 29 TV appearance. This is pretty fun. It feels like a public access interview, and the host is sort of Midwestern charming almost. He clearly does not like horror movies or anything, but he has a very Larry King type of interview style where sometimes he interrupts his guests answers if he gets bored with them, but he makes it not seem very rude. This was actually sort of the highlight of the extras for me, even though Ozone is only briefly brought up once, and most of the interview is not about the movie Ozone at all. It's just sort of about their company and some of their other projects. It's still very, very fun. Paying for Your Past Sins, the Ozone story. This is your pretty much your standard documentary retrospective about the making of the movie. There's many interviews with a bunch of people who were involved with the making. And it basically goes from, the basic story concept from the guy who originally wrote it, and he filmed some test footage ahead of time. He brought it to this director. The director decided that he wanted to do it on his own. He already had, he explained sort of the difficulties in the production as far as like low budget and lack of sets and amateur actors and all that stuff. And he has a self-deprecating humor about some of his other projects. Apparently, the master tape for this movie, they taped over the master tape of some of the other movies that they made earlier that they didn't like, so that was kind of fun. Into the Black, James Black is the star of the movie. This is pretty much, it looks like it's pulled from the exact same interviews as Paying for Your Past Sins is. It's just kind of shorter and focuses more on the main actor. It's okay. The 2003 location tour. So I should mention that the vast majority of the extras on this disc are ported over from a 10th anniversary DVD edition, which you can probably find a lot cheaper than this. So if your only interest is in some of the extras, a lot of these extras are just ported over wholesale from that. But the 2003 location tour took place at that point. Apparently the location, it was an abandoned hospital, as well as like a parking lot around it, and then like some steps and like almost like what looks like to be a play guard around it. But basically, almost all of the movie, the multiple locations, were pretty much just kind of one physical location where they filmed this, which was around Akron, Ohio. Behind the scenes, this is really it's behind the scenes of the opening sequence of the movie, where a junkie shoots up the ozone. Apparently they filmed it in just the makeup artist's basement. And then there's a very brief amount of footage after the movie premiered at what looks like a local high school's auditorium or something, and a couple interviews with people who saw it. The early test footage, so the writer of the movie filmed a little bit of footage ahead of time just on his own to try and, I guess, gin up interest or gin up funding for it. It was later, all of that opening was eventually reshot by the director when he ended up taking on the project himself, but it's fun to see the sort of rudimentary a beginning of the footage, which obviously doesn't look as good as the finished film because the writer didn't have any directorial experience, whereas this director had done, I think, 2 or more other features before and definitely did have some skill involved. It's still pretty fun to see, though. For trailers, I'll just go to that screen. Couple things. So you get the trailer for Ozone, but it's specifically a trailer that it looks like it was cut for the 2003 DVD edition. So I'm not sure if this movie went direct to video, it obviously didn't have a theatrical trailer, but I don't know if there was a trailer that was cut in front of the other VHSs of the company that ended up putting it out. Robot Ninja looks like it's another movie by the same director. It looks like that was shot on film as opposed to VHS, so it looks decent. It looks like it's kind of a schlocky grindhouse cheap movie, but as far as the visual quality is concerned, it looks like it was filmed on video. Dead Next Door, I think that was the director's first movie. Looks like it's a zombie movie of the Romero vein. Also looks like it may have been shot on film. Actually looks pretty decent. I wouldn't actually mind taking a look at that. The trailer definitely caught my interest. Platoon of the Dead, on the other hand, looks fucking awful. It looks just bargain basement, horrible direct-to-video movie, and it looks like unlike the other 3 movies that the director made, which looks like they were from the 90s, Platoon of the Dead looks like it came out in the 2000s, and it looks terrible. Poison Sweethearts, the trailer is definitely cut like a fake Grindhouse trailer. It doesn't look particularly good, but it doesn't look as bad as Platoon of the Dead either. The only other screen that's worth looking at here if we're going into extras, and I'll get there very quickly, is one of the setup menus, because there is where there are 3 audio commentaries. The 2020 restored version, that is the newest audio commentary, where it's the director, and it looks like one of his employees or a friend, I'm not sure, interviews him. The interview setup is really good for the commentary because it keeps the talk going, and you get a lot of really good nuggets from the production in here. And with the benefit of hindsight and everything, it is a really good commentary. The 2003 remastered version, that came from that 10th anniversary Ozone DVD that most of these extras are ported from, is with the director and the main star. Probably my least favorite of the three, but at least the camaraderie between the two people really keeps it going. One of the negative side, if you do listen to all these commentaries rather, there are a lot of nuggets of information and things that are repeated throughout the different commentaries. So there's not a lot of fresh, interesting nuggets of information there. That's why I didn't watch the movie 3 times with all of these commentaries. I just kind of skipped around to get little nuggets of information. But there is a lot that is repetitive there. And then apparently just a few months before the 2003 10th anniversary Ozone DVD came out, the original distributor, I think, put out a DVD under the alternate title of Street Zombies, which I guess also kind of works with Ozone. A lot of this commentary, it's just the director alone, so it's just him talking, so you do still get a lot of good information. He also does bitch a lot about the title change in the commentary, which is pretty fun. It's just kind of weird that there was a DVD release under an alternate title just a couple months before this 10th anniversary one. I don't think I haven't looked to see if the Street Zombies DVD is available or what extras were on that. But yeah, so that's pretty much the first disc. I should say, since the movie is restored, the movie does look very good. For copyright reasons, I don't feel like showing any other footage of the movie proper. Plus, if I'm showing a Blu-ray image through my 760 camcorder, it's not going to look the same quality that it actually is. But it looks about as good as a movie shot on VHS is ever going to look on Blu-ray. The colors don't bleed very far. Some of the images are still too dark, but I think there's just limitation from the elements. There's only so much you can do unless you're artificially bumping up the brightness. So, but it still sort of works for the sort of body horror noir that they're going for. But as far as, as long as you understand that this is a VHS movie, a movie that was shot on VHS, and has been restored and put on Blu-ray, that this isn't going to look like a feature film shot on 35 or even 16 is going to look on Blu-ray, then you'll be happy. I mean, it's certainly watchable. It doesn't look as shitty as, like, the Friday the 13th television series when they just basically took, like, an old VHS and threw it on the DVD or anything. It looks plenty good. The colors are nice and crisp and everything for, considering. I mean, anything you say about this movie is going to come with that caveat. And the audio's fine. I'd say you can hear the dialogue. The score may be a little too loud in there because it seems like, judging by the audio commentaries, the director really is proud of the score. I think in one of the commentaries he says that of the $3,500 budget, $1,000 of it was actually to pay for the score. But apparently, part of what kept the production budget down is that he used equipment that he had already purchased for earlier movies. So the fact that he already owned a lot of the equipment meant that a lot of the movie's budget for this time didn't have to go toward, the nuts and bolts camera and boom mic and that sort of stuff. So that was pretty good. Well, let's move on to the second disc, which is a DVD-R. Alright, and now if we do the second disc, the DVD, which has the VHS version. By the way, the video quality of the VHS version, it looks like they literally just took the old VHS this was released on and dumped it on a DVD. It's still watchable. It's not as bad as some VHS to DVD transfers I've seen, but obviously it hasn't gone under any basic restoration or anything like that. But it's still very much watchable if you want to watch it original, untouched the way it was. So this Ozone Droga Mortal is basically just some clips from the film with some Spanish dubbing. It's kind of interesting, but otherwise not of much concern. This 1992 Bee's Nest video magazine intro, this was sort of, they say they have a little title card in front of it, but Charles Band and Full Moon Entertainment, anytime you got a VHS for one of those movies, sometimes there would be like a little featurette at the end that was about like the company's upcoming release slate and things like that. And so this was their version of doing that. So Bookwalter goes over some of the history of his company. They go over some of the titles that went through, the fact that they had like a little newsletter that went out for free. They mention Ozone, because I guess this was put on a VHS before Ozone was released while it was still in production. It's pretty interesting to see. I like going over the history of the company and how they started off just going through with a Halloween makeup tutorial VHS, like a specialty title, and then they moved into feature films, and that they did some sort of like mail order business before they expanded from there, so that's fun. Then you get a couple different trailers for the movie. So the original 1993 trailer, I didn't watch this before I recorded the last bit of this about the Blu-ray, is delightfully cheesy in that early 90s direct-to-video trailer way. So they did have a trailer. It is fun. The Japanese trailer, it has hard-coded Jap subs on it, and it has a very Godzilla-esque voiceover where it's like over-dramatic. You do hear the word zombie spoken in English, so whatever the Japanese title for this movie is, zombie is part of it. And then a trailer that's very similar to the 2003 trailer that's on the Blu-ray, except this one has the Street Zombies title. They're almost the exact same trailer. And then you get trailers for some of the company's other movies. Now, of these 5, Skinned Alive, King of the Vampire, Zombie Cop, and Sandman all look like they fit into the So Bad It's Good category. Skinned Alive looks like it's some sort of like backwoods redneck type movie. Kingdom of the Vampire has the worst makeup vampire this side of Twilight, and it looks like it's about a vampire with mommy issues. Zombie Cop, of all these movies, looks like it's the one that has the best chance of maybe being a legitimately good film, if I were to see it, but ultimately I think these are So Bad It's Good. And then Sandman, it's about like sort of a Grim Reaper type character that seems to suck something out of people when they're asleep. It seems funny. Polymorph is the only one of these movies that looks like it's downright awful and unwatchable. It seems to take place all during the day in the backyard woods of someone, and it seems to be about like an alien that keeps transferring body to body, sort of like The Hidden, but with these horrible green glowing effects. That looks awful. It doesn't even look So Bad It's Good. It just looks like terrible, terrible. And then, if we go back to the play, you get a lot of different options for audio and for subtitles. So there's a stereo mix, there's a production audio, an isolated music track, and then you get one more audio commentary, and this is by a couple podcast guys. A lot of other boutique DVD and Blu-ray labels, they do this where they have an audio commentary with podcast people. This one isn't one of the better ones I've heard. I think most of the ones on Vinegar Syndrome are the Hysteria Continues, and those are pretty good. This commentary, it's a little bit of some jokes, some which land, some which don't. It's a little bit of production history, and then some of it is just them commenting on what's happening on screen. But some of that's funny because they're like during the gladiator match, they're like, I would like more details on that. And it's sort of like when you're watching a So Bad It's Good movie with friends and you're just sort of discussing different like logic and plot problems in sort of a good-natured, jesty way. So it's not a bad commentary by any feat of the imagination, but you know, for a podcast or a humorous commentary, it could be a little bit better. And that brings us to sort of the end of the special features on this. Is the Blu-ray of Ozone worth picking up? I would say it is. The extras are more than you'd normally see for a movie like this. This is pretty jam-packed with extras. In the movie itself, some scenes of the movie you might be able to consider So Bad It's Good, but I legitimately think for what this movie is, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, it is... For the budget limitations and the production limitations, it's pretty skillfully made. It definitely looks like a very cheap movie made by people with talent, but not really the means to expand upon that talent. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had fun watching the movie, and I'll certainly watch it again and try to share it with more people, because it is a fun film. So, yeah, my one caveat is still that it is a Blu-ray or BDR and not a pressed Blu-ray. I feel like if you're worried about the shelf life of the movie, if it's gonna last, if it's gonna deteriorate, if you watch it multiple times, then, you know. Since this is a VHS movie that has been restored for Blu-ray, The image on the Blu-ray isn't going to be too much better than the image on, say, the 2003 restored special edition DVD. And since a lot of the extras on this Blu-ray, though not all, are on that DVD, you might want to pick up that DVD, since I believe it was a pressed and not a DVD-R at the time, if you're worried about longevity, and because I'm sure that's just as watchable as this. But otherwise, if you want the extras, you like the magnet and the signature and the extra bells and whistles they added to this, and a slightly better picture and sound quality because it has been upgraded to Blu-ray, then go ahead and pick it up. I certainly don't regret the purchase, and I would definitely recommend it. So that's the Blu-ray recommendation for this. Before I go, if you're interested in more shot-on-video films of the era when these things were, a-poppin', I'd recommend the book Analog Nightmares. Analog Nightmares covers sort of the heyday of shot-on-video horror films. What do they go? 1982 to 1995. And I'm still in the middle of reading it. I actually haven't finished just because, things get in the way, time and whatnot. But it's got a good history of shot-on-video horror films. It has reviews of different ones. It's got some good stills in there. Ozone is only covered briefly. There's a couple screen caps and whatever, so it's not a lot of Ozone in this book. But as far as like the biggies of the genre, your sledgehammers, your blood cult, your video violence, there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's interviews. Blood Lake is specifically called out, and I do love Blood Lake. There's a lot of good stuff in this, so if you're interested in that and you want to dip your toe into shot-on-video horror films of the type, just as I'm really just starting to dip my toe into that sort of subgenre now, it's definitely worth picking up for that. So Ozone Blu-ray, I believe you can get that at Makeflix, flicks with an X.com. I think Tempe Digital is the other company. You can probably get to it through that as well. Analog Nightmares, I know my Alamo sold it in the lobby, but you can get it through most retailers that sell books if you're interested in that. But otherwise, yeah, if you want more reviews like this where I do specific reviews of a specific Blu-ray release, leave a comment below. Otherwise, I'll just do my normal extemporaneous, movie review ranting type thing. But I wanted to try this just because I'm not sure how popular this Blu-ray release is going to be or how many people are going to review it, so I thought it'd be a nice little change of pace. Well,